Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the ever-changing world of technology? Tech It Out can help make some sense of it all. Breaking down geek speak into street speak, technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman covers consumer technology each week for every listener. Mark tackles the latest news, reviews, and how-tos to help you understand what's hot, what's not, and why.
Hey everyone, welcome to Tech It Out, episode 151. We hit that big milestone last week of 150 shows, so thank you again for your support. And I hope you are doing okay out there, wherever you may be in the country. I trust that you're safe and healthy as we slowly return back to quote-unquote normal, even though we, didn't wear masks before or practice social distancing. That wasn't a thing, but you know what I mean. On today's Tech It Out, we're going to start with a discussion about VPNs, what they are and why you want one, especially now. And then we're going to chat about a wonderful app called StoryCatcher designed to capture your loved one's stories, which can then be passed down to future generations. Then we'll end off with Rovio about a new mobile game that they've got, but it's not Angry Birds, believe it or not. All of this and more on this week's Tech It Out, powered by ASUS. I'll tell you more about them shortly, but let's kick things off. It's been about a year since we've had our next guest on the program, so I'm thrilled to cover this topic again with him. We have Harold Lee joining us. We're going to talk about what a VPN is, a virtual private network, and learn some tips to using them. We're joined on the line by Harold Lee, Vice President of ExpressVPN, which is what I use. Welcome back, Harold.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
The world has changed quite a bit since we last spoke, and we are going to talk about COVID-19 in a couple of minutes from now. But let's start right from the top as a bit of a refresher, Harold. What is a VPN exactly, and why do privacy advocates suggest we use one?
Yeah, that's a great question. So VPNs provide a tool, a service, where your internet traffic is being tunneled through a secure server, a server in a different location, and that helps you in a number of different ways. It gives you more privacy and security because your traffic is encrypted, your IP address isn't visible to the sites and services that you're visiting, and also because you're sending your traffic through other servers, you can access content in other locations as well.
Okay, so the primary purpose is to browse the web anonymously. Otherwise, your IP address, which is your unique numerical indicator of where you are, you're going to get targeted probably by ads that are either relevant to your location or they're just looking at your browsing habits. So you're getting, your internet service provider snooping on where you're going. You're getting Google and other search engines. You're getting social media platforms that are all watching where you're going and then trying to target things to you. Is that right?
Exactly. So, when you're going from site to site or you're revisiting a site, you might wonder, how are they figuring out that I'm the same person even though I'm visiting different sites, even from different devices at home? And the way that they're tracking you is by looking at your IP address, and that IP address is a unique identifier for you, and also is something that can give away your location. So you can pinpoint what city you're in, and sometimes even more narrowly to perhaps what district you're in, what neighborhood you're in.
That's right. And that's pretty scary if you think about it. And then the secondary application, Harold, of a VPN is when you want to make it look like you're from another country in order to access content from there. So for example, if you live in the US and you want to access BBC Player, which is the UK's content streaming service, then you can make it look like you're from the UK so you can access it. Or my friends in Canada who want to access American Netflix, they can make it look like they're from the US by having a US-based IP address, and then they can access Netflix down there.
Exactly. So whether it's blocks by services, it is blocks from, say, your employer's school, or in some countries, a country-level block
right.
Of what sites and services you can access. A VPN helps overcome all of those types of blocks.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So how then do you choose the right VPN? There's many out there. Again, I'm a fan of the company that you work for, ExpressVPN, but how do you choose one when there's so many options?
Absolutely. So, I think at the core is you have to be able to trust a company that's providing you with privacy and security, right? And often we say if you're routing your traffic through us, that prevents your ISP from being able to observe all your traffic, but it means that you have to trust us not to be observing your traffic because your data is now going through our servers instead of going directly through the ISP. And so this is not where you want to save a few dollars. It's really important that you're picking a company that is taking those measures to make sure you're private and secure. And some things that we've done, for example, is we've undertaken audits. We've hired external auditors such as PricewaterhouseCoopers to validate our privacy policy, to see if the promises that we're making are indeed validated by what processes and technologies we have in place. And also, we do things like having advanced technology to minimize data risk. So something we have called Trusted Server ensures that servers are running in memory only. And for lay people, all that means really is that every time the server is rebooted, every single bit of data on that server is wiped clean. So it ensures that we're minimizing data risk. Even though we're not collecting any data in the first place, we want to make sure that there is absolutely no risk that there's a trace of data after we've rebooted our servers. So elements like that, I think your listeners can spend some time understanding more different VPN companies and what privacy and security measures they're taking.
Yeah, that's all great information. And anecdotally, there was another VPN that I was using that kept dropping me off the VPN service while I was using it and then exposing me, right? So, that's something that happened all the time, no matter what device I was on. And that's just not acceptable in my opinion, where the whole point is to help you remain anonymous, right? It would just happen mid-session. That has never happened with ExpressVPN. We're chatting with Harold Lee, VP of ExpressVPN. We chatted about what a virtual private network is and why privacy advocates suggest we use one. We talked about how to choose the right VPN for you and what separates ExpressVPN from the others. But now let's pivot and talk a little bit about COVID-19. More people are working from home. That's no secret. That's on a global scale. So we need to further protect ourselves, I would argue. Would you agree? And also tell us about some findings from a recent survey you commissioned.
Sure. So I think there's two things coming out of the COVID-19 experience. One is that obviously people are at home a lot more, so they're becoming increasingly conscious of their internet privacy and security needs. And the second thing, which we uncovered through a consumer survey we did, because we're often trying to do more research around privacy and security issues, was that people are really concerned about the measures that some governments and tech companies are taking to track the spread of COVID-19 and perhaps other diseases as well. While I think people agree that there is a need to combat the pandemic, there's also a concern that putting in too many measures to surveil people, to track them, and also whether or not those measures are eventually going to be sunsetted or whether they're going to continue into the future even after the pandemic has passed. And what we saw was 75% of people are concerned that contact tracing apps can violate their privacy, and a similar number, 77%, were convinced that they're at risk of mass surveillance long-term as a result of the increase in the prevalence of these types of contact tracing solutions or applications. So definitely something that's on people's minds, and it's not surprising given that I think what we've seen in the past when governments have put solutions in place for what they say is perhaps short-term surveillance, even measures like the Patriot Act, we see those provisions end up becoming permanent and become a permanent part of the surveillance landscape.
If our listeners want to read the results of this survey, you can go to the expressvpn.com blog. The headline is called something like Americans Distrust Contact Tracing Apps. So again, it's expressvpn.com/blog, and then you'll be able to see that there. Now let's talk, Harold, about some tips to getting the most out of your VPN, regardless of which company you end up going with. Is there any advice you can give on how to get the most out of their investment?
Sure. Well, one is to kind of first explore all the different things you can do with the VPN. So as we talked at the top, some people might be using a VPN at first because they've got privacy concerns, perhaps they have security concerns, or perhaps they want to access some content. And if you're entering the VPN space with one of those in mind, you can start thinking about the other ones. When I'm using public Wi-Fi in a cafe, in a hotel, in an airport, I should just turn it on to protect my security and privacy. Or if you're using it for privacy and security reasons, you can find out, hey, what are the bits of content, what are the shows that I could be watching that I can't right now because I'm located somewhere specific or I'm traveling. And there's great resources online for exploring where is this show available on Netflix, or where is this show available on streaming in a different country or a different service. So I would say that's one thing. And then another really valuable thing is that people don't realize the range of devices that can be supported by VPN. So this can vary from provider to provider, of course, but in addition to just, say, your iPhone or your PC, a VPN and its associated proxying services can be used on a wide range of devices. So perhaps you're on your Apple TV and you want to stream content on that, or perhaps you have a internet-connected security camera at home and you're not confident about its security and encryption measures. You can actually use a router in your home that has ExpressVPN installed that can route all of your traffic through the VPN, so you don't have to worry about connecting those individual devices. Or if you just want to connect a media console, we've got great tutorials on figuring out how to set up your, say, Apple TV or your Amazon Fire Stick to be able to route its traffic through one of our servers.
This is all great advice, Harold. Finally, how much does ExpressVPN cost to start, and where can we learn more?
So the ExpressVPN plan just costs a few dollars a month. If you're signing up for 12 months at a time, that's $8 something a month. And if you're signing up for 1 month at a time, it's $12 something a month. So, I think when you think about the spending on streaming services and other privacy and security measures, this is just a few dollars a month on top to make sure you're getting the most out of it.
100%. And if you're working from home, you could probably write off this software as well.
Great idea.
Harold Lee, thank you so much for your time. ExpressVPN.com for more. Always a pleasure chatting with you. Stay healthy.
Thanks a lot, Mark. You too.
When we return on Tech It Out, we're going to catch up with an app called StoryCatcher on preserving your loved ones' life stories to pass on to future generations. We'll be right back.
Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want. Find the Tech It Out podcast at iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Tech It Out, powered by ASUS. For those in search of incredible, ASUS creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life, including its line of award-winning laptops, desktops, monitors, smartphones, smartwatches, tablets, and much more. For those in search of incredible, visit asus.com/US/radio for more info. That's asus.com/US/radio. Especially given this global pandemic, where more than 120,000 Americans have already passed away because of COVID-19, and that's at the time of recording this, probably higher by now, it has also served as a bit of a wake-up call to better immortalize our loved ones so that their stories, their memories, can be passed down from generation to generation. I wrote about these so-called time capsule apps for USA Today the other week with a few different ways to capture amazing stories from relatives and friends so that it is archived forever. And I included one that I really liked called StoryCatcher. Joining us on the line to talk about StoryCatcher is April Bell. She's the co-creator of this app. Welcome to the show, April.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me.
So StoryCatcher is an app that, as the name suggests, catches your stories so that you can share them. And I know it's a bit grim in my intro about what's going on, but it's kind of hard to ignore that we are losing relatives when we maybe didn't expect to. And then you're like, oh my gosh, they had such great stories of being in the war, or what was it like growing up in America as a black man in the 60s, and we never caught any of this. So tell us a bit about what StoryCatcher is all about.
Well, yeah. So, as you say about the pandemic so one of the obstacles that I've experienced in my legacy video business along the way is that as human beings, we all kind of think we're immortal. So now we're sort of being presenced with this concept that, oh, maybe I'm not, and maybe my loved ones aren't. So then StoryCatcher, it's really just like a fun and simple iPhone app that you can capture and share video legacy stories with. So when I started Tree of Life Legacies in 2008, I was committed to capturing people's legacy stories on video to allow them to share those stories with loved ones now and to pass those stories on as an heirloom gift for future generations. Because, we all want to know where we came from, and research has actually proved that. happiness research has also proved that children who know their family's narrative are happier and more resilient than children who don't.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah, there was a research study that was done in the late 90s by Emory University, Robin Fivish and Marshall Duke. So one of the researchers' wives was a psychologist, and she worked with at-risk youth. And she noticed that the kids that were able to deal with stress seemed to have a common trait. And so she shared this with her husband, who happened to be a researcher, and he said, interesting. And so him and his partner, so Marshall Duke and Robin Fivish, they created this, what they called a Do You Know survey, and it asked 20 questions about what the kids knew about their families. And so they combined their so like things like, do you know the where your grandparents came from? Do you know the story of your birth? Do you know how your parents met? Do you know of a tragedy that happened in your family? And so then they took their survey along with a variety of other psychological tests. And what they discovered was the kids that knew more about their family history displayed a greater sense of happiness and resilience than the children who didn't. And then what happened shortly thereafter is 9/11 occurred. And even though these kids weren't directly in the event, they were all affected by this natural tragedy. So the researchers realized they sort of had this, really unique opportunity to go back and assess the children, and they discovered that their hypothesis was correct, that the children who knew more about their family's history had a greater ability to navigate the stressors of that tragedy.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and then so what they discerned was that those kids had a more foundational sense of an intergenerational self. So they belonged to something more than just themselves. So it helped build up their foundation, supported them emotionally.
Fascinating. So StoryCatcher, if you can walk us through how it works. You mentioned it captures a video chat with a loved one. I know there are other apps like StoryCore, which is an audio conversation, and then another one called Storyworth, which is a written account of one's life and memories. But I love the idea of video, since we have this device in our pocket, 80% of the population does. So when we return on Tech It Out, I'm going to ask you how we get going with StoryCatcher. What's the process like with that smartphone, and how are we prompted for questions? And then how do you save and share all of this information? We are talking about StoryCatcher. This is an app that I wrote about for USA Today, among others, on what I call time capsule apps. This is a way to preserve your family's stories. Maybe you've got an aging parent or grandparent. Let's face facts, as grim as that sounds, they're not going to be around forever. So you should archive these great stories of theirs once it's digitized, and with like 4K quality, amazing video quality that we can capture now. You will be very happy that you did this, because one day it may be too late. Again, not trying to sound alarmist here, but I have aging parents. I have a mom who's over 80, and she's had a few bouts of cancer. We've had a few scares. My dad is also slowing down. So these are the kinds of things that I want to preserve for my kids, my 3 kids, so they can best know their grandparents, of course. When we return on Tech It Out, we will continue chatting about StoryCatcher. You're listening to the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Saltzman. If you have any comments or questions or suggestions about the show, you can hit me up at tech@marksaltzman.com. That's Mark with a C, Saltzman with a Z. We'll be right back with more Tech It Out.
Want to follow Mark? Google him. Mark with a C and Saltzman with a Z. Breaking down geek speak into street speak. This is Tech It Out. Tech It Out with technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. We're chatting with April Bell, co-creator of StoryCatcher. This is an app for iPhone and iPad that lets you capture video conversations with loved ones and then share it with those who matter. So walk us through how it works exactly.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. When you launch the app, you create a new story, and then you can tap on interview tips to see a variety of good questions to ask. And then we've broken that part out into some themes. So like legacy, anniversary, travel, pets. And then you record your storyteller speaking either to the prompt or whatever, tale that you're capturing in the moment. And then right away or later, you, when you have more time, you can add photos and some screen text that help support your story. And then you can share it publicly or privately directly from inside the app. So you can share it to YouTube or Vimeo, or if you want to keep it private, you can upload it to Dropbox or save it to your camera roll or, text it or airdrop it. So, they're your stories. So you have total control over how they're shared.
All right. So it's not like you're just tapping record and winging it. There's more to it. It sounds like you're not only provided some suggested questions, but you're also able to add other assets like photos into that one story.
Yeah. So it's just this simple tool that allows you to create these little mini documentaries. And you can do that as a single story or multiple stories together in the feature that we call collections. So ultimately, you can actually make a full documentary with the app.
And who would you say the app is for? If I sort of pressed you to figure out who your demographic is.
Yeah. So it's for people that are interested in capturing and sharing their personal stories. So either you yourself have stories that you want to record, or maybe you have stories about your family history or your own experiences, your lessons learned, or maybe an amazing person with a story to tell and you want to capture that. What I always say is, are you sick of seeing your kids staring at their smartphone at Thanksgiving? You can just sit them down next to an aunt or a grandparent and have them capture some of those family stories that we've all heard a gazillion times, but then, sadly they're forgotten the details of once our loved one is no longer around.
I think one of my favorite Apple commercials from a couple of Christmases ago was a teenager was on their iPhone during the holiday, to much of the family's disappointment around them, until they realized later on that, in fact, the teenager was capturing the spirit of Christmas with the family and then produced a video and then played it for everybody. So I think that was a nice little sort of reminder that while we think these kids are abusing technology, they're also able to use it as an efficient tool in order to create something sentimental.
Right. And I loved that spot also. And then that's part of it. That's like what part of it really inspires me about, one, creating video stories, and two, using the technology we have today, because this is really meeting kids where they're at and giving us a vehicle to share with them our stories and our values and our philosophies in a way that they are open to receiving it.
I know you take privacy very seriously. Tell us about the steps that StoryCatcher goes through to protect your users' privacy.
Well, first of all, once you download the app, it's yours. And, we don't do any data collection. I mean, fundamentally, that's it. And we've also removed some features from the app. We were connected to some other apps that we discovered were kind of sniffing around in people's phones. So we, took that app off of our share function.
So let me guess, because I've played around with the app. I think it's a big one that starts with the letter F, and it rhymes with brace hook. So you removed Facebook as an option. Wouldn't you think that would be a popular platform for your users to share this video on? What do you tell the people when they write to you, say, hey, I can't share this to Facebook from within the StoryCatcher app?
Because they can just save the video to their camera roll, and then they can upload it by the Facebook app from their phone. So they can still do it. Enough. We just took it out of our share function.
Yep. That's commendable. All right. So April, how much does StoryCatcher cost? And is there an Android version in the works? I am a Samsung Galaxy phone user.
Right.
But I have an iPad that I use for some apps that aren't available on Android.
So StoryCatcher is $4.99 on the Apple App Store, and we've been working on an Android version for a while, but it would seem that the iPhone's base model is just more powerful, and it can handle the video rendering function more readily than most Android devices. So we've been working on a different way to render the video so you could share them. No launch date yet, but we're working on it.
Okay. So it's because the Android device, there's so many Android devices out there that it's difficult or challenging to create an app that will work effectively on all the different processors out there and all the video capabilities and all that.
Correct.
Got it. By the way, for our Canadian listeners, StoryCatcher is $6.99 Canadian from North Beach Apps, where April Bell is from, but $4.99 US, as you mentioned, and available for iPhone and iPad. April, thank you so much for your time. Finally, what's the best website for our listeners to learn more about the app, aside from downloading it from the App Store?
All right. So yeah, you can go to storycatcher.app, and there's sample videos, and there's also step-by-step demo videos on there. So, you can get yourself up and going with just about, 20 to 30 minutes of watching the demo videos and playing around with it. And after that, it's pretty simple and easy to use.
All right, storycatcher.app. So there's no .com in there. It's simply storycatcher.app. Yes. April, thank you so much for your time. Continued success with StoryCatcher. And it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Stay healthy.
You too, Mark. Thanks.
Don't forget that coming up on the show, we're going to catch up with Rovio. This is an award-winning game studio based in Finland, best known for the Angry Birds franchise. It's been a huge, huge game franchise, as you know, over the past decade. It has led to online video series and movies like blockbuster Hollywood films and other merchandise like apparel and collectible action figures and all that. Well, they've got a new game coming out that is not based on Angry Birds. So we're going to catch up with them for a first look at Small Town Murders, as it's called. It's more of a puzzle game, but we'll get to all of that. You are listening to Tech It Out, powered by ASUS. This company creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life. And that includes its line of award-winning laptops, like its Chromebooks, its ZenBooks, VivoBooks, and ExpertBooks for the business person out there. They also make desktops and monitors and smartphones and tablets and smartwatches and gaming gear, the ROG or Republic of Gamers line of gear as well. ASUS.com has more info, ASUS.com. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Breaking down geek speak into street speak. Check it out. Hosted by Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. One of the biggest video game franchises over the past decade has been Angry Birds, as you know. But the Finnish company, Rovio, responsible for that hit franchise, isn't resting on its laurels. To tell us all about a brand new puzzle game called Small Town Murders Match 3, we're joined by Mika Tams. He's the head of Rovio's puzzle studio, and he's on the line with us from Helsinki, Finland. Welcome to the show, Mika. I trust you're doing well.
Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
And you've got something positive to focus on, the launch of a new game last week, which we'll get to. But as I mentioned, Mika, off the top, Rovio is best known for its Angry Birds franchise. But many might not know that you have other mobile games. I know another one is called Sugar Blast, and a new one we'll be talking about shortly. So talk to us about Rovio.
Yeah, so true. Obviously, we are best known because of our Angry Birds franchise, and we are extremely proud of it. But at the same time, we are really focusing on creating new IPs as well. And one example of those is the Sugar Blast that we launched globally last year. And now we are looking forward to expand to create new IPs as well. And we are really excited to get first on this line out, and this is the Small Town Murders that we are talking about today.
Right, great. IP, of course, stands for intellectual properties, so this is like your own brand, your own new line of games. Before we talk about Small Town Murders, do you find, Mika, that people are playing more games during COVID-19, maybe as a way to stay entertained while cooped up at home?
Yeah, it is true. We see that it's clear that people in the countries where they needed to stay home have been playing more. Interestingly enough, it looks like that people don't play more times in the day, but when they play for a longer time at the one play session.
Maybe because their bosses aren't there at their homes, making sure they go back to work quickly. Now let's talk, Mika, about Small Town Murders. So this is a match 3 game. Maybe you can explain what that kind of puzzle game is like and what makes Small Town Murders unique.
Yeah, absolutely. So match 3 is a gameplay mechanic that is really well known by the puzzle gaming audience. In short, it means that you're swiping your smartphone screen and trying to match tiles of the same color. And there are kind of boosters to help you. And as in Small Town Murders, these levels have been crafted every time to kind of create this laid-back experience as a puzzle for you to solve. What is then different on the Small Town Murders and what we are really excited about is the narrative layer. So this is really driven by a story. There is a town called Thornton Grove, which is this kind of quiet town far away from the big city. This is the place where the kind of player will go and assume the role of this kind of aspiring writer called Nora Mystery, who is moving to this small town and finds that there are murders happening and tries to solve these murders. And this is really kind of an episodical, one story at a time type of a game on which, as we say, to solve the puzzles, you will then solve that who is the murderer in the game.
All right, so you play as a young female reporter who wants to make a name for herself. She moves to a small remote town, a fictional town, and discovers that the residents there, some of them are being murdered, and she vows to find out what's going on to report this for the local newspaper, if I'm not mistaken. And then in order to deduce who may be the suspects for each case, you are playing that match 3 game. So that's where, like as you said, Mika, you use your fingertip to swipe colors from left to right to match 3 or more of the same tiles on the board. In doing so, it removes them, and then the other tiles cascade down the screen. So you've got limited moves per level in order to accomplish your goal, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And what is really kind of important in this type of games is that, as I was saying, that each level is uniquely crafted to create the kind of the best experience. We try to bring it to be fun and challenging, but not too challenging, so that it's not too difficult, not too easy, but the fun experience.
You know, I've been playing it, and I find that it is relaxing, but also challenging as well. So I think you straddled that line really well. We're chatting with Mika Tams. He's the head of Rovio's puzzle studio based in beautiful Helsinki. We're chatting about a brand new game from Rovio, not an Angry Birds game this time around, but it's called Small Town Murders Match 3. Came out last week for both iOS devices like iPhone and iPad, as well as available at the Google Play Store for Android as well. Now, since this is radio, Mika, maybe you can explain what the graphics are like. I know some of our listeners may be familiar with Candy Crush. So does it look similar to that in the gameplay department?
Yeah, maybe you could say that the kind of the core game experience in many of these match 3 puzzle games, that there are similarities, so that the people who are fans of the genre can kind of understand immediately how to play, so to make the kind of experience to come into a new game relaxing and engaging. But what we're really excited about, the graphics themselves, is the story and kind of the characters are presented and how the town where the game is happening is presented. So we are kind of really happy that we've been able to create this light, unique looking, like a cartoon movie, looking like a game, that is, it's a murder mystery. So it's a kind of a genre itself that could be taken in a different way, but we choose to take this kind of a light-hearted take and aim to present that with the graphics as well.
We're learning about Small Town Murders. It's a brand new puzzle game from Rovio, best known for their Angry Birds franchise. And hey, a free game during COVID-19 might just be what the doctor ordered to help us remain entertained without having to put our hand in our pocket for anything. There are some optional in-app purchases or in-game purchases, which we'll get to after this short break. We're going to learn more about the game, but couldn't come at a better time. You're listening to Tech It Out. We'll be right back.
Follow Mark Saltzman on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want.
We're chatting with Mika Tams, head of Rovio's puzzle studio, about a brand new game for mobile devices called Small Town Murders Match 3. When you collect clues to solve a case, are you then asked to deduce who the suspect is, or is it just done for you? It seems that when I was playing, the game said, aha, this is the suspect. He's a delivery man. Or is there any sort of strategy or tactics that you as the gamer need to employ after you find out who the suspects are?
Yeah, we like to say that it's like solve puzzles and then you solve the case. So as a player, you are given the task to choose the order that the clues are collected to kind of reveal that who is the murderer. So the story reveals in the front of you as you play the game through. But from a storytelling point of view, we believe strongly that the best experience in this type of storytelling is this handcrafted, like a novel type of an approach. So it reveals the story for you, the game, but we believe that it could be too tasking if it would be that you need to kind of play the game of revealing the suspect too much. What we want you to do is solve the puzzles and learn then through the gaming who is the murderer.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know you can choose, okay, there are fingerprints on the banister or a photograph that fell on the floor, and you can choose the order, but I didn't know if that impacted the gameplay at all. Mika, what's your favorite feature of Small Town Murders?
I would obviously kind of answer all of them, but if I press to kind of keep one, I've been talking about the story a lot, and I think that's the thing that makes the difference compared to the other games. I love the fact what the team has been able to do, the light-hearted take of the genre, the murder mystery, the topical pop culture references, beautiful location, and just the sheer amount of characters that you meet during the game. It's really, really stunning, and I'm really excited about that. And then also that there are always kind of new murder mysteries coming. The game will go forever, hopefully. So that's kind of the part that I'm really excited, the narrative layer in the game.
Before we wrap up and talk about how much the game costs, and I think I know the answer there, is it scary to venture outside of the familiar Angry Birds territory, or do you find that exciting?
Well, it's absolutely really exciting. As I was saying, we are really proud about Angry Birds, but obviously this type of games, such as the Small Town Murders, gives the game makers opportunities to tell different type of stories and create different type of experiences. So we are really, really excited about.
And did Rovio make the game, or you published the game made by somebody else?
No, this is a truly homemade experience.
Okay,
so
great.
It's coming from the Puzzle Studio and from our office here in Finland.
Okay, thanks for clarifying, because I know some of our listeners may not know the distinction between a game developer, the folks who actually make the game, and a game publisher who will fund another company to make the game, and then they're responsible for distributing it and marketing it and all that. But in this case, you're both the publisher and the developer for Small Town Murders.
Yes, correct.
Okay, great. All right, finally, most of these kinds of games are what we call freemium. So they're free to download and play, but there's often an optional in-app purchase with these kinds of games. Is that the case with Small Town Murders?
Yes, that's exactly the case.
So it is free to play, and as I mentioned, for both iOS and Android. And then what would you pay for if you wanted to take advantage of those microtransactions within the game? What are you actually buying?
Yeah, there are a couple of different things. You can buy more moves. So when you fail a level, you can choose to continue. You can buy boosters, and these are the items that help you during the level. And you can buy lives. So that, you run out of lives, you need to wait, and then you can come back to the game and play more, or you can choose to continue by buying more lives. And the games is also supported by these ads, so that where you can watch an ad to obtain this kind of advantage in the game.
Yeah, when there's a free game that you want to play, often we do watch ads, and which is a way for Rovio to make some money. After all, it is not cheap to make a new game. All right, Mika, is there a website where we can learn more about the game, or do you want to just recommend to download it from your favorite app store?
I would absolutely recommend downloading the game and, letting us know that what you think about the game.
Right. Feedback is important. Give it a star rating and write a little note for the App Store or Google Play. Mika Tams from Rovio, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on Small Town Murders. I hope it does really well for you, and stay healthy out there.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
And it's also been a pleasure having you, our listeners, join us for the 151st episode of Tech It Out. Thank you for listening along, whether it's on your local radio station or in podcast form. I'm your host, Mark Saltzman. That's Mark with a C, Saltzman with a Z. If you have any suggestions for me on upcoming guests, you can email me at tech@marksaltzman.com. And I'm also all over social media. Tech It Out is brought to you by ASUS. For those in search of incredible, visit asus.com/US/radio for more info on their stellar products. That's asus.com/US/radio. Have a healthy and safe week ahead, and I look forward to catching up with you next weekend on Tech It Out. Bye-bye for now.